Mom's voice cut through the phone like a knife. Nevaeh, if you insist on living with that woman, consider your entire inheritance gone. I'll make sure the lawyers rewrite everything and you walk away with nothing but regret. The very next morning the bank manager's call confirmed the unthinkable. The multimillion-dollar trust from my late grandmother now listed both my name and Kennedy's as joint owners with full access rights effective immediately. I sat frozen on the edge of our Brooklyn brownstone couch, the receiver still pressed to my ear while Kennedy stood in the kitchen doorway, her blonde hair still messy from sleep, her coffee mug halfway to her lips. Nevaeh? What is it? She asked, her voice soft but already sensing the storm. I hung up and stared at her, the woman I had loved openly for 3 years despite every warning from my family. Grandmother Eleanor had always been different, the one who sent us plane tickets to Paris for our first anniversary. The one who never once asked me to hide Kennedy's hand in mine at holiday dinners. But Mom had made her position crystal clear last night after the quarterly family trust meeting. Your lifestyle is a liability, she had said, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the mahogany table in our Connecticut estate. The board members whisper. The country club talks. End it or the money ends with you. Kennedy crossed the room and took the phone from my shaking hands. Her touch was steady, the same steady that had grounded me through every late-night panic attack after my promotion at the marketing firm. Joint, she whispered, reading the confirmation email I forwarded. Why would Eleanor do that without telling us? We spent the next hour pacing the sunlit living room, papers from the bank spread across the reclaimed wood table. The account held over $12 million, earmarked originally for my future but now legally half Kennedy's too. It wasn't just money, it was freedom, the down payment on the gallery. She dreamed of opening the buffer against my firm's conservative clients who already side-eyed my Instagram posts with her. Yet the relief tasted bitter. Mom didn't know yet. When she found out the war would be nuclear. By noon my phone buzzed with a text from my younger brother Ryan. Mom's calling an emergency family meeting. Don't bring the girlfriend. This is serious, Nevaeh. Kennedy saw the screen and her shoulders tightened. But she didn't pull away. Instead she laced her fingers through mine. Whatever happens we face it together, right? I nodded, but inside the first crack of doubt formed. Protecting her meant risking everything: my career, my family's name, my financial future. Staying silent might keep the peace, but at what cost to the woman I couldn't imagine living without? The doorbell rang, then a courier with official documents from the family attorney. The envelope felt heavier than it should. We opened it together. Mom had already filed a motion to contest grandmother's will, citing undue influence and questionable mental capacity, the day after our last argument. The papers listed Kennedy's name explicitly as the reason. My stomach dropped. The legal battle had begun before we even celebrated the windfall. Kennedy's eyes met mine, fierce and scared all at once. They can't take this from us, she said, but her voice trembled. Outside the window the Brooklyn street hummed with normal life: taxis honking, neighbors walking dogs. Inside our apartment the air thickened with the weight of choices that could shatter us both. I pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, and wondered how long we could hold on before one of us had to break. The phone rang again, this time my boss at Apex Marketing. Nevaeh, we need to talk about your social media presence. Clients are asking questions. The first domino had fallen and the chain reaction was only beginning. The Apex Marketing offices on the 32nd floor of a midtown tower felt colder than usual that afternoon. I sat across from my supervisor Derek, his polished desk reflecting the Manhattan skyline while he slid a printed screenshot across to me. It was an Instagram story from last weekend, Kennedy, and I laughing at a rooftop bar, my arm around her waist, the caption, "Home is wherever she is." Harmless to me. Poison to the conservative pharmaceutical account we just landed. Look, Nevaeh, Derek said, rubbing his temples. The client saw this. They're traditional family values people. They're threatening to pull the 7-figure contract unless we address the optics. HR is already drafting a statement. You don't have to change who you are, but maybe keep the personal stuff offline for now. I left the meeting with my hands clenched so tight my nails left crescents in my palms. When I called Kennedy on the walk to the subway, she was at her studio editing photos for a gallery submission. They want me to hide us, I told her, voice cracking. Like we're something shameful. She was quiet for a beat, then said, "Come home. We'll figure it out." But home wasn't safe anymore. Reporters had started circling after a leak from Mom's legal team. By evening, a local tabloid ran the headline, "Heiress's secret lesbian affair threatens family fortune," with a blurry photo of us kissing outside the brownstone. My phone exploded with messages from aunts, uncles, college friends, even my old high school coach. Some supportive, most not. Kennedy met me at the door with takeout Thai and a bottle of the cheap wine we loved. We ate on the floor surrounded by printed court filings. Grandmother's will was ironclad on paper, but Mom's lawyers argued she had been unduly influenced by Kennedy during her final months when we visited the hospice almost daily. They wanted depositions from nurses, character witnesses, financial records. The discovery process alone could drag for months and drain what little savings we had left. That night we lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan. "Maybe I should step back," Kennedy whispered, her head on my chest. "Just until the lawsuit settles. I could move in with my sister in Queens. You keep the money, the job, your family." I sat up so fast the sheets tangled around us. "No. Absolutely not. This is exactly what they want, to divide us." But even as I said it, the fear gnawed. My promotion to senior strategist was up for review next quarter. One more scandal and it would vanish. Kennedy's freelance work depended on her reputation, 2 gallery owners already emailing about brand alignment. The next morning brought the car accident. Not dramatic, just a rear end on the BQE when a distracted driver slammed into us on the way to Kennedy's studio. No one hurt, but the insurance adjuster took one look at our shared address and the tabloid article on my phone and started asking questions about domestic partnership status. The claim processing slowed to a crawl. Another pressure point. Mom called that evening, her voice ice. "The board is meeting tomorrow. Sign the papers relinquishing your claim on the joint account, and I'll drop the lawsuit. Kennedy keeps nothing. You keep your life." I hung up without answering. Kennedy stood in the doorway watching me, her eyes wet. "I won't let them make you choose," she said, but we both knew the choice was already tearing us apart. By the end of the week, the story hit national blogs. "Old money heiress battles family over lesbian lover's inheritance." Comments flooded in, some calling us gold diggers, others praising our courage. My LinkedIn filled with connection requests from journalists. At work, 2 clients canceled meetings. Kennedy's gallery submission was postponed indefinitely. We sat on the roof that Friday night sharing a single cigarette, the city lights blurring below. "Every time I think about walking away, I remember the way your grandmother looked at us that last Christmas," Kennedy said. "Like we were the real legacy." I pulled her into my lap, the wind whipping her hair across my face. For the first time, the fear felt bigger than the love. But letting go felt like dying. The court date was set for 30 days out. 30 days to decide whether to fight publicly and risk losing everything or settle quietly and lose each other. The clock ticked louder than any heartbeat. The courthouse steps in Lower Manhattan gleamed under gray October skies as we arrived for the first hearing. Cameras flashed from across the street. Mom's legal team had tipped off the press. I gripped Kennedy's hand tighter than necessary, her fingers cold despite the gloves. Inside, the marble halls smelled of old paper and desperation. Mom sat on the opposite side of the courtroom in a navy suit that cost more than our rent, her face a mask of dignified pain. Beside her, Ryan avoided my eyes. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened as Mom's attorney painted us as opportunist Kennedy, the influencer, who manipulated a frail old woman. Our attorney countered with medical records showing grandmother Eleanor's sharp mind until the end, and affidavits from her closest friends confirming she had approved of us years ago. But the real blow came during recess. A process server handed Kennedy papers for a separate civil suit, defamation and intentional interference with inheritance. Mom was going after her personally now. Outside, Kennedy leaned against the stone wall, breathing hard. "This isn't about money anymore," she said. "This is about erasing me." That night back in Brooklyn, we argued for the first time in months. "I can't watch you lose your career because of me," she shouted, pacing the living room. "Take the settlement. Keep your half. I'll sign whatever they want." I slammed the counter so hard the dishes rattled. "And what then? I get the money and lose the only person who ever saw me? That's not a win, that's surrender." The fight ended in tears on the kitchen floor, her head in my lap, both of us exhausted. The next morning brought worse news. Apex Marketing called an emergency all hands. The pharmaceutical client had pulled out, citing reputational risk, after the courthouse photos went viral. Derek offered me a leave of absence, that smelled like a prelude to termination. My savings would last 3 months, maybe 4. Kennedy's sister called offering her spare room again. This time Kennedy didn't refuse outright. She just looked at me with those blue eyes full of love and guilt. I spent the afternoon on the phone with our attorney reviewing settlement offers. Mom was willing to restore my individual inheritance if Kennedy formally renounced any claim, and we paused our relationship publicly for 2 years. The price of silence was my soul. We drove to Connecticut that weekend to meet Mom on neutral ground at a coffee shop near the estate. She arrived alone, perfectly composed. "I'm doing this because I love you, Nevaeh," she said, stirring her latte. "This lifestyle will close every door. Kennedy seems nice, but nice doesn't pay the bills or protect you from the world." Kennedy sat beside me silent, but her hand found mine under the table. I looked at my mother, the woman who raised me alone after Dad left, and felt something crack inside. "You never asked what I wanted," I said quietly. "Grandmother did. She chose us both." Mom's face hardened. "Your grandmother was sentimental. I'm practical." The drive home was silent until Kennedy spoke. "If we lose the court case, I'll leave. Not because I want to, but because I refuse to be the reason you end up with nothing." I pulled over on the side of the highway, tears blurring the road. Then we'd both have nothing that matters. Back in the city, the harassment started. Anonymous emails to my work account. Protesters outside our building with signs about family values. Kennedy's studio was vandalized, spray paint across the door. Each incident chipped away at our resolve. Yet every night we held each other tighter, whispering promises that felt more fragile by the day. The judge ordered mediation. One last chance before trial. Mom's team arrived with binders of evidence, including old emails where I had vented about family pressure. They wanted to portray me as unstable. Kennedy prepared her own statement, the story of how grandmother had pulled her aside during our last visit and said, "Take care of my girl. The money is yours too now." I watched her rehearse in our living room, her voice steady but her hands shaking. In that moment I knew I would burn every bridge to keep her. But the fire might consume us both. Mediation day arrived with pouring rain that matched the mood in the neutral conference room downtown. The mediator, a calm older man with wire-rimmed glasses, laid out the ground rules: no interruptions, no personal attacks. Mom sat ramrod straight across the polished table, her attorney whispering notes. Kennedy and I held hands openly for the first time in weeks. Our side presented the joint account documents and grandmother's handwritten codicil, discovered only last month, tucked in her old journal. It explicitly named Kennedy as co-beneficiary because love like theirs deserves security. Mom's face paled, but she recovered quickly. "Sentimental ramblings," her attorney scoffed. "Easily challenged." Then Kennedy spoke. Her voice didn't waver as she described the afternoon she spent reading to grandmother in hospice, the quiet conversations about art and legacy, and the courage it took to love openly. Tears slipped down my cheeks as she finished. "I never asked for the money. I only asked for Nevaeh." The mediator called a break. In the hallway, Mom cornered me alone. "You're throwing your life away," she hissed. "Ryan's already distancing himself from the family name. The club revoked my membership. All because of this." For the first time I saw real pain behind her anger. "I lost your father to his choices. I won't lose you too." I wanted to hug her. Instead I said, "You lost me the day you made me choose between family and love." Back inside, the offers flew. Mom would drop all suits and restore my full individual inheritance if Kennedy signed away her claim, and we agreed to a no-contact clause for 1 year. The mediator looked hopeful. Kennedy's hand tightened in mine. I stood up. "No deal. We go to trial." The walk out of the building felt like stepping off a cliff. Rain soaked us instantly, but Kennedy pulled me into a kiss right there on the sidewalk. "Cameras be damned. Whatever happens tomorrow," she whispered against my lips, "we did this together." That night we made love for the first time in weeks, slow and desperate, like it might be the last. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets, she traced patterns on my arm. "If the judge rules against us, I'll disappear. You can say it was a phase. Save your career." I rolled over, pinning her gently. "And live the rest of my life pretending you never existed? No. I'd rather be broke and honest." Morning brought the accident we had dreaded. Kennedy's car was sideswiped by a van on her way to drop off portfolio samples. The driver fled. She called me from the ER with a mild concussion and bruised ribs. The police report mentioned possible targeted incident after witnesses saw the van circle the block twice. Paranoia or coincidence, we couldn't tell. I rushed to the hospital, papers from work clutched in my fist, my termination notice effective immediately. Derek had emailed it at 8 a.m. citing irreconcilable cultural misalignment. Kennedy tried to smile through the pain. At least now we have time for that gallery dream. Her optimism broke something in me. I cried in the hospital bathroom until a nurse knocked gently. The trial date was moved up due to media interest. We spent the next 10 days preparing affidavits, gathering character witnesses from grandmother's book club. Ryan surprised us by agreeing to testify that Mom had pressured him to cut contact too. Small cracks in her armor. But the tabloids escalated. One ran a photoshopped image of Kennedy with $signs in her eyes. Another claimed I had forged the codicil. Death threats arrived in our mailbox. We changed the locks, installed cameras. Sleep became a luxury. The night before trial, Kennedy packed a small bag just in case. If they take everything, I'll go to my sister's. You stay and rebuild. I zipped the bag shut and threw it in the closet. We leave together or not at all. In court the next day, the judge listened to 3 hours of testimony. Mom took the stand last, her voice cracking for the first time. I only wanted to protect her. The courtroom was silent. Kennedy reached for my hand under the table. The ruling would come in 48 hours. 48 hours to imagine every possible future, rich or ruined, together or apart. I held her that night like the world might end and wondered if love really could survive when everything else was on fire. The judge's chambers smelled of lemon polish and tension. We stood when she entered, her black robe swishing. After careful consideration of the evidence, including the late Mrs. Eleanor Thompson's clear intent, the court upholds the joint account in full. Relief crashed over me so hard my knees nearly buckled. Kennedy squeezed my hand until it hurt, but her smile was radiant. Mom's face went white. Her attorney immediately announced an appeal, but the judge warned of sanctions for frivolous motions. We had won the first round. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Microphones thrust forward questions about lesbian gold diggers and family betrayal. I pulled Kennedy close, shielding her. We fought for love and justice, I said into the nearest camera. Money was never the point. The victory felt hollow by evening. Apex Marketing issued a press release distancing themselves completely. My severance was generous but finite. Kennedy's gallery contacts dried up overnight. New vandalism appeared on our door. Mom stopped answering calls. Ryan texted once, "Proud of you, sis," then went silent again. We used part of the inheritance to hire a private security firm and a publicist. The publicist advised a joint interview with a sympathetic outlet. We sat on our couch holding hands while the journalist asked the hard questions. Would you have walked away if the money was at stake? Kennedy answered first. Never. But I would have understood if Nevaeh had. I shook my head. Walking away was never an option. The interview went viral. Support poured in from unexpected places: LGBTQ organizations, artist collectives, even some distant cousins. But the hate mail tripled. One night a brick shattered our front window with a note, "Sinners burn." We moved temporarily to a hotel while repairs happened. Kennedy's concussion symptoms lingered: headaches, dizziness. The doctor ordered rest, but rest was impossible with depositions for the appeal looming. I took over cooking, cleaning, everything to give her space. One afternoon she found me crying over job listings. "Hey," she said, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "We have each other. The rest is just noise." But the noise grew deafening. A conservative pundit on national television called us the poster children for entitlement. My old college roommate started a GoFundMe against us, raising thousands for Mom's legal fees. Kennedy's sister begged her to come home, just until things calmed down. We argued again, this time about selling the brownstone and leaving New York entirely. "Start fresh somewhere no one knows us," Kennedy suggested. I resisted. Running makes us look guilty. The fight ended with her storming out to the roof. I followed after 10 minutes. We sat in silence watching the sunset until she leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm scared we'll lose ourselves trying to win." The appeal hearing was scheduled for January. Between now and then we had to survive Thanksgiving alone, no family invitations. We cooked a small turkey in the hotel kitchenette and toasted grandmother with cheap champagne. To the woman who believed in us, Kennedy said. Midnight brought a text from Mom. I miss you. 3 words that cracked the armor I had built. I didn't reply. Not yet. The security footage caught a suspicious car outside the hotel twice. Paranoia or real threat, we couldn't tell anymore. Kennedy started sleeping with the lights on. I started waking every hour to check the locks. Love had become a battlefield, and we were both wounded soldiers refusing to retreat. The judge in the appeal promised a decision by Christmas. Another deadline, another test. I looked at Kennedy across the hotel room, her face soft in sleep, and wondered how much more we could endure before one of us finally broke. Christmas Eve found us back in the repaired brownstone, fairy lights twinkling despite everything. The appeal judge had upheld the original ruling 2 days earlier with a stern warning against further harassment. Mom's team finally withdrew. The money was ours, free and clear. But victory tasted like ash. My career in marketing was over, at least in New York. Kennedy's photography portfolio had been blacklisted by half the galleries. We had the inheritance, but the life we built around it was in ruins. That night we sat by the tree she had insisted on buying, a small one with ornaments from our Paris trip. We could move to Portland, she suggested softly. Open the gallery there. Start over. I nodded, but the thought of leaving the city where we fell in love felt like another loss. The doorbell rang at 9. Ryan stood on the steps, snow dusting his coat, a wrapped gift in his hands. Mom didn't send me, he said quickly. I came because I was wrong. He hugged me hard, then handed Kennedy an envelope. Inside was a letter from Mom. Not an apology exactly, but an admission. I was afraid of losing you the way I lost everything else. The money was never the point. Come home for New Year's if you can. We didn't go. Not yet. Some wounds needed more time. Instead, we used the first chunk of the inheritance to fund Kennedy's gallery dream right here in Brooklyn. We hired a lawyer to sue the tabloids for defamation, and won a modest settlement. I started freelance consulting for LGBTQ-friendly brands, work that felt honest for the first time. Slowly the harassment faded. The security firm stood down. Neighbors stopped staring. We rebuilt piece by piece. On New Year's Eve we stood on the same rooftop where we had once doubted everything. Fireworks exploded over the skyline, painting the sky gold and red. Kennedy turned to me, her eyes shining. We almost lost each other trying to keep each other. I pulled her close, the wind cold against our cheeks. But we didn't. That's the part they never understood. The year ended with us intact, not untouched but stronger. The inheritance paid the bills, but the real wealth was the woman in my arms who refused to let go, even when letting go would have been easier. Family might never fully accept us. Careers might never look the same. The world might still judge. But we had chosen each other in the fire and emerged with something no court or bank account could ever take away. Was it worth the price? True or false? In the end, silence always costs more than courage.